Hey, what up? It's pattheflip. Thanks for checking out the video. If you want, give me some money on Patreon or Twitch so I can keep on making cool shit. Peace.
Hey, what's good, everybody? It is Thursday night. We're here to save some vampires because we're playing VSav today, aka Darkstalkers 3, Vampire Savior, a prototype anime game. This is the blueprint, baby. And we about to check this shit out with the homie Aevee Bee. As soon as she's done tweeting, I can get her on a call.
Hello.
Hi, how you been?
Oh, I've been just dandy.
I want to ask what you ate for dinner again, because every week I get an interesting answer.
Well, I'm sorry to say that I just had leftovers today.
Okay, but leftover what?
It was leftover of what I made last week, actually.
Oh, wow. Are you? So you're the type who can eat a meal for a week?
This one was stretching it, I gotta say.
Yeah.
But I made a huge amount of it, and I didn't want it to go to waste.
Got it. Before we get in there, I just found an excellent tweet. You're not single because you're ugly. You're simply single because you're just not good enough at video games. If you were good at video games, you would have that cute artist GF that you want. This is the kind of tweet that definitely makes me think,
happened to you.
Absolutely, right? This is my life. Someone named Eugene. I don't know who this person is. My guess is they are probably 10 years younger than I am. When I see shit like this, I think maybe I was born in the wrong generation. Maybe I'm a Zoomer at heart, but it worked out for me. So, hi, cute artist wife.
Hello.
All right.
Hi, Irene.
Hi.
So I'm going to go ahead and open up Fightcade. But we in there, and we're about to play the game. Before we do, real quick, the recap here is we have been kind of winding ourselves around. I will describe it as meandering, right? Because the path has not been particularly direct, but we've been winding through a history of sorts of fighting games, playing a lot of the stuff that we didn't really get into much, just kind of in our own fighting game journeys, right? And we're playing a lot of SNK stuff, and then we moved into Capcom and we played Alpha 2 and Alpha 3, both of which have, they represent a notable point at which Capcom's fighting games started to diverge a little bit from the classic formula, right? So you got to see Alpha 2 with a bunch of systems layered on top of each other, and then you got to see Alpha 3 where they kind of split them apart, right? You have the ism system, and that's what lets you kind of play different versions of a character. They also introduced a little bit more airplay, stuff like that. Sorry, Slamtown Alpha, not right now. But VSav was really the blueprint for anime, right? Like we can look at this game and we're gonna see a whole bunch of stuff that looks real familiar to us because we've been playing Guilty Gear. We've been you've probably played some BlazBlue, you played some Uni, right? Like all that stuff. I always think of VSav as essentially the anime fighting game. So I'm super stoked to kind of dig into this because it does definitely do some shit that we'll recognize, but it also it does some shit like in terms of the size of the game and the size of the screen, right? They're still kind of operating in a Street Fighter-y box. So I'm gonna be I'm super stoked to play this game with you. In any case, let's go ahead and play some video games before I get challenged by other randos and they get mad at me.
Actually, of all of the games we've played so far, this is the one that I have the most familiarity with, actually.
She says right as she goes and picks a top tier.
And I do know that QB is really good in this game. I mean, so I had picked QB and played this on old fight game a long time ago. Yeah. Really badly. If I was playing today, I would immediately pick Gallon.
Right.
Instead of QB, because Gallon is as top tier, but way easier to play.
Well,
smarter now.
If I had a character in here, if I had a character in this game named Patrick, I would also pick that character just for the hell of it, right? So you got to represent for the B. And actually, Gallon, as it turns out, was when I messed around in VSav with my friends back in the day. Gallon was the first character I was drawn to, because he's like a kung fu werewolf.
So okay, so we talked a little bit about how this is the proto air dasher.
Yeah.
And what's interesting about it is that we've got this is my jump in button.
Yeah.
We've got a lot of like important air dasher concepts.
Mm-hmm.
We have like guard cancels. We've got like push block.
Yep.
If I had any idea how to do either of those things.
I think push block is like you have to attack press an attack button on like the same frame or something that you're getting.
There's a very weird rhythm to it, actually. Like there's like an optimal like pianoing.
So yeah, I was reading up on this on the wiki a little bit. Shouts to Mizumi. Where it's that you can get the push block, and it is per input, but it's like per input per frame, right? So if you're pressing 3 buttons at the same time, it's 1 input, but if you piano, then you'll get a bigger chance.
But one thing that's like really interesting about this game that it doesn't have is universal air dashes.
Yeah.
However, I think what's super interesting about this game is that they kind of like figured out that air dashes were in fact almost essential for how you were supposed to play this game.
Oh my god.
But what I do know is that like air movement options become more and more prevalent as the iterations of the game go on.
Yeah.
And the top tier of this game is defined almost exclusively by who can air dash. Or who has like Sasquatch doesn't have an air dash, but he has a short hop.
Yeah, he's got the hops, right? Yeah.
Right. Yeah, it's about like it's kind of like it's pretty brutal. Like it's something that like I think characters.
Ooh, we got some buttons.
KOF characters. Yeah, this is buttons.
Yeah.
Her dash has homing on it, which is like one of the reasons why it's so good. And so she can do these like kind of triangle jumps. That's the main thing. The main thing I know about QB is you press medium punch as much as you can.
Oh, get out.
And Jetta, God, there's so many anime game characters that come back to Jetta.
Yep.
It's amazing that like he's not even like considered maybe a like super good character, but his like, I mean.
But a lot of what he has just feels so special and so. I mean, like Raven, right? Raven is basically like.
Yeah, this is Raven.
Yeah.
Like 100%. Like probably not a coincidence, but Grand Blue's Belial, who's the like evil hot guy. He's got the exact same projectile as Jada. And Jada's like, I think it's his. Yeah, you've even got like Dizzy's fucking unblockable is the same move that he has.
There we go.
Oh shit. He's got this incredible. Yeah, he's just got a really cool playstyle.
I've always been kind of sad that like whenever Jetta makes it into other games, they suck, right? Because the only other games I remember him ever making it in are Marvel Infinite and Capcom Fighting Evolution or Capcom Fighting Jam.
But he has all of these like kind of like really fun multi-hitting normals. He's like he's one of the last characters they made, so he's got like a real quality of animation difference from like Morgan.
I cannot stress enough, as someone who currently does a lot of work in and around fighting game character production, the order in which you make stuff generally is perhaps the biggest determinant of whether something is going to be cool or not.
Really?
Yeah.
What's your opinion on what like works?
I mean, it's entirely because the team has to learn how to work together, right?
Oh yeah. In terms of like what you mean like not in order.
Yeah. I just mean like barring like unfortunate time crunch situations that would force you to like cut corners or whatever. Like your team's gonna have to figure out how to actually do all this shit, right? And once you get deeper in the cast, like that's when people kind of got things figured out.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. Like, because you have to kind of like figure it out. Like, you need to know like what works and what doesn't. Morgan, like Eno's like hover dash. Like it's just so interesting to see how they're like. It's almost like they were figuring out the concept of the air dash in real time.
I mean, I'm sure they were.
Right, yeah, they definitely were. They were like, oh, like we want this to be faster, like air movement can be safer. We have like blocking in air. We've got that concept. We don't want it to be maybe Lilith's really hard to use.
What's Lilith's deal? Like, how does she differ from Morgan?
She differs quite a bit. She's like, I think she's considered better than Morgan.
Mm-hmm. That was cool.
But she has a super jump. A lot of her like projectiles are like, so she's got like this. She has this like kind of like short range projectile.
Yeah.
That takes a lot of time. So it's like, it's very interesting because it's like a sort of move that doesn't look like it would be very good, but it actually is one of the reasons why she's better than Morgan, I think.
Stop! Oh, you got me. No. Oh my god.
Oh yeah, and she's got like she's got kind of like Street Fighter
does she
dash.
not have the hover dash?
No, she does not. No,
Interesting.
she doesn't. She is. I mean, she's interesting because like in high level play, people basically use her, Luminous Illusion, which is her Raging Demon, as an air dash, just to like kind of.
I like the health regen mechanic in this game too.
Yeah, the health, like that's a super interesting mechanic. That helps make it feel really fast because there's.
Yeah, you can crank damage, but then if there's a little bit of a lull in the action, then you give people a chance to like lick their wounds a little bit.
Right. Yeah, it's kind of like a proto risk gauge, honestly.
Yeah. And to me, like it's cool because you start to see people thinking about like, hey, how do systems that frame like the resources in this game change the pacing, you know? Like you could think of that as like a precursor to negative penalty and tension pulse.
Yeah, definitely.
And this movement just feels great. Everyone's like slipping and sliding around.
So fast. It's really, really fast. Just by default, honestly. It's just so blazing fast.
Yeah,
right?
And that's like an integral part of a fighting game, right? Like one of the hard parts of making fighting games is that like a lot of the appeal of the genre is in how they let you go like at the speed of your brain, right? These games do not wait for you, but these games will often let you go as fast as you are capable of going, you know? Oh my god, that was sick. And a lot of that is like, as you get more and more complex animations, right? As we switch from 2D to 3D, and all of a sudden it's easier to do longer animations, like the pace of the game slowed down a lot, right? Because especially 3D animators aren't trying to work with like, 3-frame startups, 4-frame startups. Like you can't do shit like that. And it definitely looks weirder in 3D to animate that quickly than I think it does in 2D. Oh, fuck. Oh, nice. Woo. Oh, I guess the Raging Demon input supers make a little bit more sense here because you have chain combos. So
yeah.
Like as long as they have like a light punch, medium punch in there, you can start the combo. That I never realized that.
Yeah, so I think that's kind of like generally why, that's why the Lilith thing kind of works. Is like she can end her pressure with Raging Demon, and like somebody can get out of that, but they can. It still lets her pressure them and continually get closer.
And Dimitri can do his out of fucking dash. That's wild.
Yeah.
Oh shit! Nice. Like this game has a degree of love and personality that's felt by the fans that is almost never reciprocated by Capcom itself, right?
Yeah, we still have not seen a follow-up for this.
Yeah.
I mean, I kind of don't want to be perfectly
No,
honest.
and well, yeah,
like,
and that has everything to do with the way Capcom has turned out. Like, you know, in general, the change in people's opinion and about their output, right? Like, in the 25 years since this game came out.
The people who like made this game, like it's just like a very different team of like of animators, and like, to be frank, I don't really like the way that, like, I definitely have not like aesthetically liked any of the Street Fighter, the contemporary Street Fighter.
Yeah.
Neither 4 nor 5. There are things that like I can kind of find that I like and respect about the kind of like interestingness of their house style.
Yeah.
But it just doesn't match what I see from like this era of Capcom pixel art. And it gets even better. Like you have like Breath of Fire 4 and like Street Fighter Third Strike. So it's like these characters are so iconic because they are so cartoonish. Yeah. And they would be terrified to make a game that looks as cartoony and anime as this game does. They absolutely would just, they would be so scared of that.
Yeah, I mean, and
like,
yeah, we haven't seen Capcom do anything cartoony in like a pretty long time, right? Especially not in fighting games. Yeah,
especially not in fighting games. Like, I mean, I think maybe Arc System Works could do it.
Yeah.
Like, they obviously wouldn't get the license, but but I think that they have like a better, their style and their attention to detail is far closer to like what the artistic team on this game does.
Right.
Than like,
look
not
at
to like
this
knock like
button.
3D games like, as a, oh my god, I do love that his whole like half body comes out.
I love that whenever he down backs, he walks backward. That's actually kind of genius. Like, look at this. He's got crouching walks. I'm coming for you.
Oh yeah. God, what? What a freak.
And like, this game's cool also because the normals feel special, right? The difference is not as big as like, oh, I threw a punch or I threw a motherfucking fireball, right?
Yeah, this move where I shoot a whole bunch of bees out of my hand is a normal move. Like, it's so wacky too. Like, they were really like, damn, a character's body can just become whatever animation we want it to for this attack. Like,
and that's a much bigger pain in the ass to do in 3D.
Yeah, I can imagine. Though, like, it's pretty cool because like this energy at least is what I see in like Guilty Gear's animation.
Well, because Guilty Gear and the Arxis team is really they're the ones doing most of the like mesh deformation stuff, right?
Right.
So like when they're doing something to show like, oh, this you know, like this, maybe a blade trail or a smear or something, like they're actually like adding or showing more like a different chunk of geometry to create that image. Yeah. Right.
Yeah, definitely. And like, and yeah, they're basically doing the exact same, what you would call.
Yeah.
For all intents and purposes, like the workflow and the kind of like talent base is just the same as 2D. And like, and you absolutely see it with like Dizzy in particular. I think is probably the most Darkstalkers-y character.
Yeah, Raven actually. So I think one of the reasons why why they took so much of the Jetta moveset is he was the character that they got when they first got the ability to stretch character models.
Oh,
so that's why we got Noodly Boy and all his like, where he'll like stretch his arms or he'll like cut something on himself to attack with his blood.
Right. Yeah. Like. Yeah, he's able to like really contort his body. I think it's his like down kick is like a very common move in a lot of fighting games, actually, where he kind of like descends and then hits all around him.
Yeah.
I remember I found like I did some research because I was like, oh my god, like Byakuya in Uni has that exact move, and so does oh my god. She's like the last boss guy of Blaze Blue has it.
Oh.
I
Actually, not played enough Blaze Blue to know.
She's really fucked up. She's the one who has like a she has like, instead of a double jump, she just hovers in air, and then she can like glide on that plane as if it was like a second ground.
Oh shit. That's kind of tight.
And she can do grounded normals in air that way.
Oh wow. That's usually a glitch.
Yeah. yeah. So she has it like as her thing. Like
that's hilarious.
That's her. And she also has like she's got like a hyper armor move as well. She's a super degenerate character. She's really cool. But people hate her for obvious reasons.
She's really cool, so people hate her, yeah.
Probably. Yeah, she's like beautiful to watch because her like animations are really good, and like the way that she does her combos looks super cool.
Oh my god.
That is a beautiful combination of wing animations.
And Belletta didn't give a fuck. She's just like, dude.
Yeah.
Oh well.
Well, the timer is actually really fast considering.
I saw in the like the update that nobody likes, which it cracks me up that this game like is of the age where they're just updates where people are like, boo, we're not playing this. But they add some time to the timer on knockout so that you presumably you have fewer timeouts.
Yeah, I feel like at high level play, I don't think this gets too many timeouts.
Yeah, I would imagine not.
Oh, who is it who plays? Is it Mighty Mar I'm thinking of? Mighty Mar is the one who plays this character. So, Pat, do you remember that short story I wrote about a low-tier fighting game character coming to life?
I do.
Okay.
At least I'm pretty sure. That sounds familiar.
Yeah, I read it for like, I think it was called Ghost in the Machine or something like that. It was forever ago.
Yeah.
Anyways, I'm told by other people it's an okay story.
You want link it in chat?
Oh god, no. Okay. I would love. It's one of those things where I'm like, it was really bad, but other people maybe like it. So, which is how I feel like about a lot of my writing. However,
we're rolling that blunt. Let's go.
I like wanted this character. Like I was like, oh, it would be really cool. I wanted to write a story about a fighting game character that was really weird and really bad, that only like a super hardcore person would want to play. And so I based her completely on Anna Kiris because I had just found out about that character, and I was like, oh my god, because there were like, there's Mighty Mar, I think, in America, and there's some other person in Japan who plays this character. And even though it's like just complete bottom tier, like fundamentally missing like
parts of the
really
game,
important, really important system mechanics. He makes it work and makes this character look terrifying, and like uses all of its weird weaknesses as strengths. Cool. And I thought that was the most beautiful thing I'd ever heard at that point. So that's why I wrote a story about it.
That's awesome.
A story that's kind of okay.
Look at you writing a Wreck-It Ralph about
yeah, it was literally a Wreck-It Ralph about pre Wreck-It Ralph. So they Disney, Pixar, or whoever owes me royalties.
That's right.
I love that Cobra move a lot.
Oh come on.
I love the sound effect. I love that sound effect a lot.
Yeah. Funnily enough, Anakaris is actually, in theory, one of the strongest characters in Marvel 2, if you can set up the shit just right. He's got some like, they call them 300% combos, because basically you can do a combo into a guard break setup on incoming, which if you do it perfectly lets you run through the whole team, right? But it's so incredibly hard to set up that we basically never saw this outside of theory.
Oh my god, I didn't realize that there was kind of like a what's a good way to put this? Like a task only strat for a fighting game.
Oh yeah. No, you definitely have like theoretical top tiers where you almost never see them. Like, actually, I don't know how much you watch or how much attention you pay to competitive Marvel 3, but
yeah, a little bit, a tiny bit.
The last Marvel 3 winner at Evo for the last Marvel 3 last Evo that had Marvel 3 was Ryan LV, and he did it with a team of like Chun-Li, Morgan, and I want to say Phoenix.
Oh, that's interesting. I don't remember seeing Chun-Li.
Yeah, so Chun is the outlier in that team, right?
Right.
And basically, the way it works is Chun is capable of some really unorthodox air movement, and she can move around in the air. She can stay up there a long time because she can do her, I think it's not Hazanshu, whatever the up kicks she has. And because of that, she can run away, but she can also chase down pretty effectively. And the runaway is handy because you can call Morrigan's assist, which gives you meter. And because Chun-Li is just flying around like at the top of the screen, it's pretty hard to catch her. It feels like some Marvel 2 Storm shit. And I remember people talking about that stuff like years before we saw Ryan LV play the team. And then when Ryan LV played the team in the Evo beforehand and made top 8, I remember thinking, oh, like next year they're fucked, right? If he keeps it up at this pace, like he's gonna get it. And he did. And I felt really smart.
Oh, that's really cool. Dang, I like that. That's very like, one thing that's very interesting to me about Marvel 3 and Marvel 2 is that it's very like, it's the most Magic the Gathering.
Yeah.
Other than maybe like Guilty Gear.
Oh yeah, no, because composition is definitely a thing. There's a layer of strategy in team games, especially in Marvel, that isn't in most fighting games because they don't give you enough explicit decisions like that to make.
Right. There are like, I mean, like a lot of Guilty Gear characters are interesting because they have like alternate win conditions.
Right.
Which is like a thing that you do see in like CCGs and stuff like that, where it's like, you know, I'm not necessarily trying to, like Milia. Milia is the perfect example.
Yeah, or Jacko is probably the most explicit, right?
Jacko. Yeah, Jacko's got like kind of like a maybe more gimmicky one, but even like a thing like, oh, this character uses Okizeme to like create those situations.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, but it really kind of like comes into play like with a team game, because like team games are like interesting because you can have like a character that's like, oh, it's not actually good. I'm not trying to actually win with this character fundamentally.
Yeah.
Like I'm using this character in order to enable a more degenerate strategy.
Exactly.
For my other characters that are my like actual win condition.
Yeah. So like the reason that Chun, Morrigan, Phoenix worked so well was because you had Chun to run away, you had Morrigan to build meter, and then you had Phoenix coming in with level 5, right?
Right. Yeah. That like I remember like Phoenix being like the win condition.
Yeah.
So it's like really interesting to kind of like think about like, well, how do I like create this strategy? Dang, I want to watch that Evo now.
Yeah.
That sounds really interesting.
It was good.
Victor is one of my favorite characters in this because of the like,
oh my,
how the sheer difference between how this character like looks and how he's animated. He's animated like so fucking goofy. He like one of the goofiest animated characters in a game that has some goofy ass animations.
Yeah.
But like his intro is like, so like, here's the dead girl's ghost that gives me electricity. And then,
oh my god. Yeah, it's.
And then here's my move where I pick my nose. My butt is flying.
Yeah,
my butt is.
We got some cake on this boy.
Yeah, this guy's got real big cake.
Yeah, every
like flag that's in his nose.
every character in this game feels like they have some pretty distinct like button feels, right? Like the number of inputs you're doing per second or per, you know, arbitrary time window, and the kinds of inputs you're doing and what outcome that creates on screen. Like, you know, the medium that they're working in is the same as any other 2D fighter, right? You got 2D animations, you got sound, right? You got a very limited pixel budget, but the way these characters just feel to play is so different. It's really amazing.
Yeah, it's actually pretty incredible. And like, this is like the big heavy character, but he feels so fast too.
Yeah.
Like, and those buttons really reach.
It's funny that like whoever worked on Anacaris is probably like, all right, so Dalsim's weird, but like, how do we make a Dalsim weird enough for this game?
Yeah, for real.
The way that he'll jump and he'll do the jump kick where his legs come out of the ground gets me every time.
Yeah, it's so cool. Like, now I know that like I remember reading from some oral history or something like that the same person who basically programmed and kind of like did all the game design for Street Fighter 2 is the same person who did it for this game as well.
Oh, interesting.
It was like balanced by like
oh
one
my
person.
god! You've got to be
Alright.
fucking kidding me.
The same strength.
All right, so I got a question for chat real quick, because every time we do one of these sessions, we always get a bunch of people who love the game coming out and watching us and be like, oh man, I'm so glad you're playing this game. It's so good. What do you like about VSav? Other than the sick ass stage, this is one of my favorite stages. This and the like, whatever the
so
like
good.
big ass demon fetus shit.
Oh,
This-
the
that
fetus
shit is
of
the
God
best.
is like. I remember forever ago there was like, oh my god, Felicia's movement is so crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I will say, like, one of the things that one of the reasons I've never gotten into this game is because I know it's not a combo game, and I fucking love combos. So it makes sense to me that y'all that folks out there would be like, oh, it's got the anime, it's plenty anime, but doesn't have quite as much of the combo length in there.
Yeah. Damn. See, that is like one of the reasons why I was like super like excited about this game.
Yeah.
Although it's got like, I mean, if you want technical execution, there's a lot of characters.
No,
that are,
there's absolutely a lot of technical execution, but like part of what I love about fighting games is being able to earn the right to play the game the way I want to play it for a while, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm like I've said before, I'm like learning to love combos.
Yep.
But I also kind of like I see them maybe a little bit too much as a means to the end to like love them in the way that I feel like, and yet they're really entertaining. They can be good. Sometimes they're like, I have yet to like have a character where I'm like actually like their combos are so interesting I really want to learn them. Though I feel like sometimes it's really hard for me to like to make these like assessments because sometimes the movement stuff is so too much in some of these games that I'm like, there's no way that I'm gonna do like oh my god. Which might be me like counting myself out.
I mean, it took me probably a good 10 years of playing fighting games before I got really into combos.
Yeah.
And it was learning zero lightning loops. That was the point at which I was like, oh, I guess I can do
Now
this.
you're like, this is like pretty interesting.
Yeah. Before then, it just felt like something I had to do.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess I kind of like, you know, like, I kind of like Kai because he's simple, but it also is fun to, like, link his shit into each other.
Right.
Sometimes I'm like, damn, I actually like doing, like, I had fun doing, like, Baiken and even, some Milia combo trials.
Oh, yeah.
And I was like, actually, this is really interesting. And, like, Milia is, like, a conceptually very cool character to me still. A character that I was, like, man, maybe I was like, do I love this character enough that I would want to try and like really like learn her seriously? And I was like, I guess not. Just because it felt like I was like, this is so interesting and fun to do in a vacuum.
Yeah.
But when I think about how much I have to do just to kind of like get started with her,
yeah,
I'm like, I literally, I don't know if I actually have the time that I could devote to this game to make that happen.
To Millia, no, absolutely. Irene said once, she's like, Millia has simps, huh? Like Millia players are just her simps, and it's absolutely accurate, right? If you love Millia, you are devoting yourself to a woman who will never love you back, and that's what you're here for.
Yeah, for real. And you really have to like, you have to work.
Yeah. For
that shit, for sure. I mean, that's the fantasy.
Oh, that. Basically, I'm strong.
Basically.
Oh, I like this Felicia color too.
Yeah, she's got some really good ones.
Yeah, I like this game because they don't go into like super jump height, right? Like there's no real camera scrolling or anything like that.
Yeah.
But they use the entire screen with the air movement, with all the big ass buttons. Like you never really feel like the screen feels small. I wonder how much French Bread looked at this game when working on Uni.
Oh my god, yeah, right? Because it's like, oh my god, okay.
Because Melty is very much like, it's obviously like Guilty Gear inspired, right? Low attacks losing a little bit of their luster when you can just dash right over them.
Right, yeah.
Oh, nice.
Hell yeah.
That's right. Feel your safe self, Aevee. Actually, you've been streaming for a while now, right?
Yeah, I have. It's interesting because both me, like, I'm in my 30s, and my streaming partner Fern is older than I am.
Mm-hmm. And it's kind of funny to me that they have as many charge characters as they do, because charge characters in this game would force you to choose between the fun movement and the positioning and stuff from all the wild movement, and locking up that charge move that you want.
Like, it's kind of interesting because I was actually like, can't remember why I was thinking about this, but like, cool. If you think about it, like, there are not too many charge characters in Guilty Gear or like anime games in general.
Yeah.
Probably precisely because of that reason, right?
Yeah, I mean, like you think about who gets the charge moves in Guilty Gear. It's like Potemkin, it's Axel, right?
Yeah.
Characters that don't really want to be moving around that much anyway.
Right, exactly. Yeah, characters that actually have this kind of like committed defensive stance.
Yeah.
Like there's not, I mean, there's Mei, but like Mei is not like the Guile.
Yeah. Mei has charge moves. I think that's probably actually a concession to her. Like, my impression is that Mei has always been thought of as kind of like one of the easier characters to try and get into.
Right, yeah.
Which is funny to me because I know plenty of people who have a hard time with charge moves. But I think that, like, at least some combat designers look at charge moves and they go, oh, well, you can kind of understand this a little bit more easily than motions.
Yeah, I kind of think that, although, like, I've never, like, new players, I think, hate charge moves with a passion. I mean,
like, truly like, new players, I think, hate all kinds of special move inputs.
Yeah, they definitely do, but I think, like, woo, my god. Oh my god. I did not know how to deal with that. Yeah, they're like, I mean, I don't know. I think like a lot of people who I know are like, charge moves feel so inconsistent when you are learning them for the first time. Mm-hmm. It feels like they only come out every every like third time you try and do it.
You
and I think like
have
people,
you have to figure out, like, you have to get a sense for the timing, right?
Right. You really have to get the sense for the timing. And I think like people might actually like, I mean, I don't know, this is kind of like my experience, but it's like consistent with like a lot of people I know who are like maybe like casual fighting game players or people who have like dabbled in fighting game players in fighting games. They're like, man, I like, oh my god, my favorite character is a charge character. I can't play her.
Yeah.
Like, because it just means that I have to do this weird thing. Especially when it comes to like, if you're in like an anime game where you have to do like a charge move in a combo or something like that.
Yeah.
I think that's a hard sell. Even though it can be like, I think ultimately like the more that I played charge characters, the more that I'm like, oh, actually, it's kind of easy. But I think it's like you actually need to be too experienced with fighting game in order to understand why it's easier.
Yeah. I was having a conversation with someone on the insert credit forums where they were posting like, oh, it was kind of the typical like the salt, right? They're like, oh, I don't play these games because I'm tired of getting the like of going into the mission mode and it doesn't tell me if I should be pressing the button earlier or later. And I'm like, I get that because you don't know enough about the game to understand how clear the instructions are, right? And my response is basically, in most situations, they're playing Street Fighter V. In most situations, if you didn't see the thing you wanted to come out, then you press the button too early. And if you did see the thing come out that you wanted to come out, but it didn't combo or didn't hit, then you press the button too late. And that's really it, you know? But like, in order to communicate that information, I have an understanding of how scripts work. I have an understanding of how how hits and cancels work, right? The difference between links and chains, and how to see those differences by just watching the replay, right? And
right.
And even just that fundamental goal, or that fundamental gap, is something that a person can explain very easily, but a machine often has a harder time.
Right. Yeah. Totally.
This is one of the best like game design podcasts you will ever listen to, and we're doing it while we're playing a fighting game that one or both of us have not really played before.
I've never played. Or
I feel like early on in Irene's Jam career, she found some fan art of Jam with like one of those beer helmets, and both of the cans were labeled "dumb bitch juice," and Irene was like, "Yeah, I think I found the one." The thing you're describing, right, where you have this idea of how you want to play, and then you pick a character that fits that, is really interesting to me, because like, I guess from where I look at it, right, as the hardened veteran of multiple fighting games, I'm like, realistically, like, most new players to any game are not making many meaningful decisions around how they play the game out of anything other than, like, one, what's your character choice? And then two, like, where do you want to be on screen, right? But, like, Kai is a good example. Or, like, actually, I think there are lots of characters who are good examples of, like, when you're new, you think you can play this character the way you want to play them, right? And people can get really attached to that, right? And as the experienced player, I'm like, yes, you are free to play the character as suboptimally as you would like, but this character is designed to be good at certain things or good in certain places. And if you play them without playing to those advantages, like, you're really just playing yourself, you know?
You know, it's like, oh, like, Kai's like a little bit of like mid-range stuff that like there's this particular way that you can like do even like good Oki game with him. Like it's a lot of like, this is how to learn the character, or learn how to learn the game. And one thing that's like super interesting about Kai is like I've noticed how many characters have Kai things. Like I keep on playing like Viken and Elfelt both remind me of Kai.
Sure.
I'm not sure if other people feel the same way, but it feels like it's like Kai with other stuff added on to him. Because they've got a lot of they've got some similar basic stuff, and then they have stuff taken away and stuff added.
Right.
And yeah, that's kind of like a basic character.
Yeah, that's kind of like, that is how the Shoto type works, right? Like you have like Kai and Soul, and then you have Chip, and he's kind of like a fast Shoto with more tools, right? Or you have Elphelt, and she's like, well, some of the tools that Elphelt has are reminiscent of a Shoto in terms of like button speed and spacing, but then she's got like a bunch of other wild shit to compensate for the fact that there's no DP, right?
Right, yeah. Right,
which is very different from like Milia. Milia doesn't really feel like she has a whole lot in common with that entire crew, like
right, definitely. Like, yeah, she feels like she plays in a pretty fundamentally different way. I guess though what I would say to that is that it's kind of like you think of yourself as like, beginners are like, I want to do this, or like this is the fantasy that I have.
Yeah.
But like, is that true? Is that real? Like, is that really what you want? Do you actually know what you really want to do in a fighting game? I just like, I'm thinking about that when I think about saying like, oh, I want to play like a Kai type character because I like big buttons.
Yeah. Like some of that might be you have this, like you have an opinion of what you think is cool in fighting. You're like, oh, I want to do that, right? But like, you know, people never think that the things they are or the things they do are cool, right? At least not at first.
Yeah.
Cool is something that other people have or other things and you want it.
Yeah. Right. A lot of times you're trying to like, you're often, especially in fighting games where you get to literally be another character, you're like, I want what that person has.
Exactly.
Like, I want to think of myself as that kind of person.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
I'd say that maybe.
So here's a question for you. Outside of Guilty Gear, outside of fighting games, right? Like, there is no question in my mind that you're cool as fuck, right? Sometimes intimidatingly so. Like, I know I have spoken to plenty of people. Irene has said that you are intimidatingly cool. When you deign to stop by the Guilty Gear, you know, like NBA Jam nights and stuff, there's this undercurrent of like, oh, you know, Aevee's coming. That's so cool, right? And I know I'm willing to bet one that people have told you this, and also that you probably don't believe them or never believe them, and will kind of gracefully and politely accept their adoration or whatever, right?
That's what I do.
But the fact remains that you are cool as hell. But I'm guessing you don't think you're cool as hell, because who can, right? Anyone who thinks that they are themselves cool usually ends up sucking.
Right, yeah, those are like not the person you want to hang out with at all.
Yeah, exactly. Exit cool. Johnny thinks that he is cool and is definitely not cool for that exact reason.
Yeah. He's kind of like, the thing is that he kind of can wrap around because he's so dorky.
It's true.
Oh my god, at least I got one life bar.
He could potentially pull that off, right? Like, but it requires a long journey with Johnny. I'll just say that. And really, the problem with Johnny is probably that at one point he saw a shirtless man with a trench coat and sunglasses, and was like, "Yeah, this is the pinnacle of cool." He saw this at a young age, and just devoted his life to imitating that forever. Right?
Yeah. Did you see? Okay, I can't help but be reminded of like, there's this thing going around where there's some 4chan posts people were circulating where there's this guy who is like,
the guy who lived like Driver.
Yeah, he lives like that. And then there was this girl who was like just on Drive. Turns out
my ex-boyfriend made that his whole personality. Yeah.
Yeah. Hilarious, even if not true, because it's the internet. However, I can't help but think of Johnny in that context now. Like,
please post that meme later today.
Yeah,
I'll retweet the shit out of it.
Who your character as this? It's fucking Johnny for sure.
Who is the Yeah, or I mean, your character as an our relationships post is amazing. Your character as 4chan green text.
Oh my god. Just having that with Milia, and Milia is the girlfriend too.
Yeah.
I guess that would be fun. But anyways, Yeah, he is kind of a furry. Jeez.
So that was a hell of a game. Like this, I can. This is probably the longest that I've sat down and played VSav with anybody in like years. Probably since I was like at my homie's house in high school, just playing random burn Dreamcast games, right? Like I have not gone in on this game in a long time, and just sitting down and playing it for like, you know, basically an hour and a half with you, I can see why everyone who feels strongly about this game, like why they love it and why nothing else has really hit this for anyone, right? Like,
yeah,
some of it is the core gameplay. Yeah, what?
Oh, this game is so good.
Yeah.
I was just having an overwhelming amount of fun with it.
Yeah, and it's like, it's not a mystery, right? It's the character designs are amazing. The animation is incredibly expressive, right? So it gets really easy to feel this like joy while you're pressing these buttons. The game doesn't get in the way of you at all. It says you can kind of cancel stuff into stuff in general. Yeah, there's some you know, like you have to learn the chain system versus links, and you know, if you want to cancel into specials or stuff like that. But like at a very basic level, there aren't that many dead buttons. You can kind of get an idea of what works, right? You can kind of experiment on the fly. The mobility is super flexible, right? Like it's all just this amazing package that I think is kind of misunderstood a little bit by like this game might be the best fighting game we've ever played together on stream, right? It's
a really good, like, it's just so fast. It lets you kind of like do whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that it's like it's kind of like I mean, at a high level, I'm sure tech is really like weird, but like I was just like, I think I was doing some stuff that I've seen high level Felicia players do.
Yeah.
And it was really fast and really fun. Like it's kind of like a little too bad that it feels like from I feel like I don't know if this is a thesis statement yet, but like from the games that we've played, it's kind of interesting that like modern fighting games feel so polarized between regular Street Fighter and like Guilty Gear.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if we have so many of these like weird like kind of middle experiments that are like super fast and super like this kind of like hybrid game, because I love it.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, the closest that I in terms of core gameplay, the closest analog I can think of is probably like KOF, right?
Yeah, it's basically that.
But KOF doesn't like it's like KOF if KOF didn't have long ass kind of hand cramping combos, but a lot of the turn length, a lot of the neutral and the fluidity of the movement, like I mean, Uni starts to get there a little bit, but because of the desire to have long anime style combos, right, with several just like, you know, LMH into special into LMH into launcher into LMH, blah 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 blah, right? Like, and then on top of that, the long like offensive and defensive strings, like the turn length is just longer, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, there's something just very, very kinetically satisfying about the interactivity and like super quick turns, the ability to steal turns, but also like plenty of interactive defensive systems. There's just everything feels like it's really tightly like kind of woven together in a way that feels pretty good, I think.
Things like stop and start like really suddenly, but it feels like you're moving the whole time.
Yeah.
You don't kind of like feel like it's like, oh, everything's like reset, now we're like getting back up again to like do it all over again.
Mm-hmm.
It's more like even when you're like, when we're throwing each other, you just get right back up so quickly and you're right back into the action.
Yeah, I mean, it really does feel like a scrap right? And of course, like if we were better at the game, we'd have more combos. Turns would probably be a little bit longer because we'd have, we'd have a better understanding of where the inflection points are on offense and defense, right? But like the momentum of the game and just the pace of the game is definitely like it's a lot faster than I normally see in anime games. I guess the thing, if I were to look at this game and think, well, why didn't more games follow in this game's footsteps? Some of it might be that like the long combos and the kind of the potential for like cinematic moments and supers or whatever. That is something which like it starts to like the pace of VSav just from when we were playing it feels so integral to the experience, right? But it didn't feel like there were like it felt like you had to keep up that pace for the game to feel satisfying, right? Like if every round or if every stock we were taking a 6-second break to watch these two like do like, oh shit, you hit the ultra or whatever, right? I don't think it would feel as good, right? I think it would significantly take away from the experience.
Yeah, no, it's very interesting how it's like you're totally right that a lot of like games totally went in that direction. In some ways I can see it even like giving players a break because that game is really intense. But like it wouldn't feel like Vampire Savior. Like I feel like that's a game where like the speed would be hindered by long combos, definitely. And like people were pointing out in the chat, we probably, if we were really playing this game, we'd be push blocking a lot more. But or even guard canceling. And yet at the same time, like that just like I think the shift in momentum would be like almost equally as fast.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, I guess so. I had a Twitter thread going a couple days ago where it was in response to some conversations that I'd had about Guilty Gear Strive. And I said basically like fighting games are kind of consist of two different things, right? One is fighting games are a place for you to kind of just grab your favorite like action figures from your, your Saturday morning cartoons or comics or whatever, and just bash them into each other, right? And oh, I get to have, Leonardo from the Ninja Turtles fight Superman, and here's how it's gonna go, and And the other half is this is a martial art that we're playing, right? We have attacks, we have moves on offense and defense and neutral, and we are developing our brains to be able to perform these inputs better. And it's a contest of skill and of mind reading and of all this kind of shit, right? And different fighting games will offer different high points on either side, right? So like this is why arena fighters like the Naruto games, most of them, or like Kill la Kill, whatever, like the 3D arena fighters are great for the former, right? You've got your jump action characters and they're all just beating the shit out of each other, and you have all these fun moments of fan service and homage. But in order to make that really good, the aspect of the game that's about two people outwitting each other and outplaying each other is compromised rather significantly, right? It doesn't, because things don't happen at the right speed. If you want to make something look like anime, from your favorite TV, One Punch Man or whatever, you're not going to have the pace that you want, right? And I feel like I can kind of see that split here, where like I think the aspect of this game where it's like brain candy and we're feeding constant inputs and outputs is amazing, right? And they also get a lot of character mileage by operating within those constraints. Everything is fast, but they go so hard on the animation, right? They take those 4 frames or those 8 frames and they animate the hell out of it, and it looks amazing, right? But I do think I would imagine that like if you tried to get away with a game like this these days and you licensed a popular IP to it, that you get a bunch of fighting game crackheads who love this shit, but you probably would disappoint the people who actually like the IP.
Yeah. Really? I mean, I don't know. I feel like this game had so much like immediate appeal.
Yeah. I guess it depends on the IP, right? Ninja Turtles? I could see Ninja Turtles translating great into like a VSav clone or something like that.
Level, I'm not sure if people would notice the difference whether or not it was like a really slow game or a really fast game, if they were like super into like watching the IP smash.
Yeah,
they might not like. I mean, again, people though like want those big long animations when they like see a big special fighting game move these days.
Yeah.
And so and I feel like trying to do a game without any of that, that's maybe a harder sell.
Well,
I don't know if the pace would be a turnoff though.
Yeah. Well, and so the pace is interesting because like I could see an optimistic case for Guilty Gear Strive, and I say this as someone who has not been optimistic about Guilty Gear Strive,
Yeah.
right? The optimistic case for Guilty Gear Strive is they shortened all the long things in Exerd. They cut off a lot of the characters' legs, but if the pace is fast enough, if the back and forth is fast enough, it won't feel like a Guilty Gear game, but it might feel closer to this than not, right?
Yeah, no, that's like that's the thing that I'm like, I'm really on the edge.
Yeah.
I'm not experiencing, Pat, I've seen your like grief.
Mm-hmm.
And and I know it feels like real bad. I'm like optimistic that it could be like a game. If it comes out to be a game like this, I'd be pretty happy.
Yeah.
Because then I'd have that and I'd have Exerd.
Yeah.
And I could grow on Exerd. I'd be like, by the time that I'm bored of Strive, I feel like I could just be getting going with Exerd, you know?
Yeah, that is actually, I guess, one, my grief is real, and it comes in part from it, like, the best analogy that I could think of is like, I love 80s and 90s Japanese cars, right? Like, you give me a Honda CRX, you give me a Toyota MR2, right? The fucking RX-7, like all that shit. I'm like, yes, give me more of this. I want the jank. I want to be able to feel like every single thing that this car is doing, right? And what I'm getting is like, if this is, depending on how Strive lands, it could be somewhere between like a Prius or maybe optimistically the new Honda Civic Type R, right? Where it's, and I'm like, I don't know where they're shooting with this, but if they're trying to convince a bunch of diehard Rice Rocket fans to get excited about a Toyota Prius, we are all going to be grieving about that. So I'm hoping that at the very least this feels more like the Type R. We'll see how it goes. I was not optimistic after seeing the Zato stuff or the Milia stuff. Milia maybe a little bit, but playing this game with you has actually given me higher hopes for Strive than I've had previously.
But I was like, like these games are actually making me kind of like hyped for Strive, just because it feels like it almost feels retro. Like like I hope that it's not trying to be this kind of like traditional footsies that never was. Yeah. That kind of like fantasy that a lot of people talk about. I hope it's more like this. A really weird kind of like complicated air mobility heavy footsies that maybe doesn't have quite the sort of like combo and like set play that a game like Guilty Gear, Exerd or Accent Core or Plus Art has. Oh, that's an interesting take, Vicky Viper. I
mean, so this is exactly it, right? Like, one of the issues that we run into with Strive is everyone has a different perspective on Guilty Gear, because Guilty Gear has so many different things in it that people love, right? I don't know if you've had this experience, but like when I listen to the Guilty Gear soundtrack, I'm like, oh, this is a bop, right? Like I like this shit. But I get other people who are like, I love metal. Metal is my favorite thing about Guilty Gear. I have never cared about metal at all, in Guilty Gear or not. Right? That is not what I come here for. I come to Guilty Gear for the big brain shit. Right. Plenty of people do not come to Guilty Gear for the big brain shit. We call them Leo players, right? And so if you play Kai, Soul, Leo, like that kind of shit, and you look at Strive, you're like, oh yeah, this is the game I've always been playing, but maybe with a little bit of the pesky shit in there, right? When I talked to Peppery Splash, he's a Venom player. We're not seeing Venom in there, right? And so he's like, maybe Chip, right? And then we look at Chip, we're like, no. Maybe Zato? Maybe, like the best of a bunch so far, right? But I understand why Chip and Venom and Zato and probably Answer players why we would all be disappointed, because we're all kind of kindred spirits, right? We're here for the big brain shit.
Yeah.
I played Ryu in Street Fighter 4, and I mostly played Ryu in Street Fighter 4 because I didn't like Street Fighter 4, but I like Ryu, right? I was like, well, at the very least, I can get better at the fundamentals. And then I played Street Fighter 5, and outside of early, like around launch, Ryu has been dog shit for almost the entirety of that game, right? And that more than anything else is what killed Street Fighter 5 for me. Right. The fact that I couldn't play Ryu doing Ryu things and have a reasonable expectation of like doing okay in a matchup because everyone is anti-fireball tools fucking killed me. Right. But if
you don't get to do your basic thing.
Exactly. Right. So like when we're looking at Strive, everyone looks at it from different perspective. Everyone's seeing different things. Because whatever Guilty Gear gave them before, right? Because it gave out so many things, right? Whatever Guilty Gear gave them before, right? If Strive isn't giving it to you, then you're like, fuck this shit. And if Strive is, then you're like, what? This is the same Guilty Gear I've always been playing, right?
Right.
So I think Strive is going to represent essentially a culling of the taste profiles, right?
Yeah.
Like, I look at Kai in Guilty Gear, and I'm like, when I see Kai players in Guilty Gear, I'm like, why are you playing this game? Why go to a high end ice cream shop and why go to Baskin Robbins and pick vanilla, right? When you could, like, even if you wanted vanilla in that moment, why do it? Why do it over and over and over, right? But other people are like, no, this is why I play the game, and apparently those people are closer to what the intended player base for Strive is.
Oh, just to defend Kai players for half a second.
They don't need it.
I think one thing that I've actually gotten at, and this is just to say like why I'm even enjoying playing Kai and Xrd, which I didn't think I would do. You know, I went to Kai from I was playing Strawberry Cheesecake with Elfelt.
Yeah.
And then I went to Kai. But I actually have played it a little bit like I am 2H in the haters. Thank you, Omega Kyle. Because when you play Kai, you're playing boss fights. You're like playing the main character of a character action game.
Yeah.
You're playing Dark Souls, and everyone else is like a Toho boss. That's actually kind of like what I've started to like. That's the thing that's been keeping me back into it. Is like, oh, I've got like these tools. Like, how do I like figure out what this person is gonna do to me? But I agree. It's like definitely different, and it's definitely the reason why I'm like looking at the new characters. And I'm like, oh, cool. Maybe I'll try out Ramlethal. She looks pretty interesting. And like Ramlethal players are like, I'm fucking so pissed off. They took everything cool about her out of that game. It's like, and I was like, oh, I could definitely see it considering what like Ramlethal was like before. Yeah. It's a really different thing.
And that's the thing, right? Like I've maintained for a long time that the strength of a fighting game lies in its ability to generate to offer characters that fit very narrow taste profiles. Right. I think that if you want to make a winning fighting game, you don't do it by offering a roster of characters that have all the hard edges sanded off. Right. You don't want a character select screen where any person looks at the game and goes, oh, I could see myself playing like half the cast. Right. Because it means that you're not going to have their favorite character. Right. I play Guilty Gear for Chip and for Zato. Right. And those characters, as they exist in Xrd and in Plus R, you cannot find a character like them in any other game. So if I want to play these characters, I'm playing them in that game. If I took anyone through a Guilty Gear character select screen and they're like, oh, I could play just about like they all seem like I could pick like 10 or 15 characters that stood out to me or that I want. That means that you don't have that sharp appeal so much, right? And if you don't have that sharp appeal, then those players are going to stick around until they see another game that kind of has the same shit, right? Or that kind of has another thing that people really like, and hey, maybe now we're going to go play this game because that's where the hype is or whatever, right? If you have characters that are incredibly polarizing, then that's how you get characters to keep, or that's how you get players to stick, right? And Ram is a great example because no one ever saw Ram and thought, oh, this is how this character works, right? In Exerd. The sword set mechanic is super weird. Her character design is incredibly popular aesthetically, right? Super popular with the fan artists. Almost like, I feel like almost every artist I know doesn't know Guilty Gear that well, but they know Ram, right? But because her gameplay was so weird, if you were in the rare, like, cross section, right? The rare Venn diagram overlap of people who like the way she looks and people who like the way she plays, then that is your shit, and you're never going to find anything like her again, right? That's how, and then that's how it feels when you see Strive and it's like, who is this basic ass whatever wearing my favorite character's skin?
Yeah. No, I totally like, and I totally get that. Like, I'll say that, well, I don't know. I think that you're right. Like, that there's like a certain special thing about like making a character that only like a certain amount of people can play.
Mm-hmm.
Though I think that's a really, like, I think that's the thing that gets like fighting game players to definitely like last with a game.
Yeah.
I almost think about, like, I was actually going to make an analogy about, like, fighting games in the 2000s to, like, shmups.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if it's necessarily the most flattering analogy.
No,
but
I think that is entirely accurate.
But it's a definite, like, sort of thing where it's, like, shmups developed, and I wouldn't say necessarily it was the key to popularity, because, like, shmups got, like, way more limited in their audience.
Yeah.
But it definitely was like shmups, like Cave, for example. They make games like, if you have experienced the high of 1cc'ing a Cave shmup, and I have, I have chased.
Oh, flex on him, maybe. Let him know. Let him know.
I have 1cc'd Escaluda 2. It's not even like one of the hardest. Actually, it's pretty. It's not that easy. And so you make these games that will satisfy the people who like are already like super bought in. You're like real core. And it keeps the core going, you know, like, and like, so I can see though that like people are like, how do we get out of this niche? How do we get people who aren't just part of that core to start buying this game? And I have to be honest, like, I'm not sure if that'll even work with fighting games. They might just be too hardcore, even in a baseline.
Yeah.
And I sometimes wonder if it's like, does it even matter if you try and make this game more accessible? Like look at Smash and Melee. Like, you might as well, like, just get an IP. An IP will do more than actually, like, changing the gameplay.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah. Like, there's a lot of reasons why it might, like, what even that might not be the key to victory.
I think
it's kind of hard to. It's just hard to know.
Yeah, and like, let's be honest, when you're in charge of a studio and you have bills to pay and you are giving people jobs, right? People rely on you to sell this game in order to fund their lives. It's really hard to look at what you've got and go, oh yeah, we should make this less accessible and more complicated for a niche audience, so it'll sell less copies.
Right. That might shrink. Like, you don't necessarily, like, even if they're loyal, you're not sure like what to do. So sometimes you might have to, like, so I understand them like taking this risk.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know if it'll pay off. They might make a game that is pretty cool to me. I hope it works out for them. One way or the other. I kind of hope that they're able to make that like really niche game again somehow.
Yeah, I hope. I mean, I want to say that's why Arxis publishes Uni, right? Because it is that game. Like, Uni is the last fighting game I've played where it felt like the creators loved fighting games.
Mm-hmm.
Marvel Infinite had some of it too. It just wasn't evenly spread, right? But Uni, they knew very clearly what the genre is that they're operating in, right? Everything about it is essentially a 2000s fighting game. It was just made 10 years later, right? And it's funny, like, you were talking about how, like, essentially the promise of simplifying a game to make it more accessible is fundamentally it's a marketing pitch, right? You're saying, hey,
Right.
you think fighting games are cool. Well, we have a fighting game for you, and you might be interested in the IP, but at the very least, what we can offer you to help persuade you to spend that $60 on the pre-order or the $85 for the definitive edition pre-order or whatever is this game will be a little bit easier for you to engage with. The cost of actually getting your money's worth out of this game will be lower, right? But as you pointed out, like the IP is actually the biggest determinant of success in a fighting game. And I don't think anything has actually proved that more than obviously Smash, but actually Dragon Ball, right?
Oh yeah.
Because Dragon Ball did offer players some more simplicity. They're pretty smart about how they're like, oh, you could do one button combos. You could see all the cool stuff without learning how to do it yourself. And, the hard way or whatever. Right. And they did a bang up job adapting the IP. But really, if you look at it, that game is Marvel 3, right? Like its guts are Marvel 3. Marvel 3 is one of the least newbie hospitable games in the world. But Marvel 3 is another great example, right? You have the IP.
It's one of the most hypest,
Not only is it hype, but it is the IP that motivates people to learn all the obtuse bullshit that fighting games make you do. The better your IP is, the higher your complexity budget.
You either need like an IP or you need a studio that's kind of like kept around and supported simply because other people in the industry love and depend on it.
Yep.
That's why I not to end our really intense intellectual fighting game discussion with a pitch for communism, but
no, let's fucking go. I'll end it on a slightly more optimistic note, I guess. I participated in a panel, or it was a roundtable discussion that was moderated by some Asian American studies academics who were putting together a work group about the intersection of games and race and Asian American studies, basically. And it was clear that a lot of them, I got the impression, at least the kind of, because Asian American studies is multidisciplinary, right? And I got the impression that the people who were kind of facilitating and running the session were largely coming either from like sociological or literature backgrounds, like English, and what I asked them was like, look, if you want to understand why anything about games are the way they are, look at the economics, right? I was like, look at the conditions under which we're making games, look at where the funding comes from, look at the stakes about entertainment at scale, look at who's offering government grants or other ways besides essentially like capitalist video game production. Everything starts with the economics. I'm sure they didn't need to hear this guy who writes about Street Fighter just hitting us with some real ass marks or whatever, but it's true.
Yeah.
So much of video games are the way they are because this shit is expensive as fuck to make, and we need to work in order to live, and that's it.
Yeah.
Maybe that wasn't quite so optimistic. All right, it's 11 o'clock. We should probably go eat dinner. Stream, thank you so much for coming through. Aevee, always a pleasure to have you. Love your life, be good to one another, and play some motherfucking, what did we play today? Darkstalkers, aka Vampire Savior. Let's fucking go. Peace out, y'all. Mwah.
Good night, everyone.
この番組はご覧のスポンサーの提供でお送りします。